So I don't know about you guys, but my YouTube Shorts feed has been filled with handbag restoration videos / like leatherworking, making handbags from scratch, and they are so satisfying to watch. Like, oh, I don't know, there's something about it. Like, they do ASMR too with the sounds. It's so lovely, and I'm so intrigued, and now
I need to make my own bag.
So I think it's going to be a little bit ambitious to start with leatherworking for the entirety of a bag. So I think I'm going to start with fabric. I need to do it. I have to. I keep seeing these videos and I have an urge to make a damn bag. Now, if I'm going to be sewing a bag, it's best to attempt one that I obviously can't afford.
You cannot afford. Great success.
So I am going to be making the Christian Dior Saddle Bag. I have loved this bag for so long, and if you know me, you know that I used to ride horses my entire life, and I think it's just that nostalgia and that love of like the saddle and the shape itself that just really always draws me back. I think this is probably my top favorite designer handbag of all time. And just to clarify, me recreating the shape of this bag is totally fair game because Dior was unable to trademark the 3D shape of this bag itself. They're only able to trademark the logos, and I'm not going to be using the logo hardware. I'm going to be using regular generic hardware, and I am just going to be using plain fabric with no logos on it. So this is completely fair game. F you, Dior. You lost the lawsuit, okay?
If you know how I feel, why would you say that?
You can't tell people not to make this shape, okay? I'm gonna do it. Ooh. You can't stop me. Anyway, speaking of shading Dior, as much as I love this bag, Dior as a company, pretty shady, not loving them. So let's look at the tea. It was recently brought to light that Dior was allegedly paying $57 total on cost of bags that sold for over $3,000. And when we think of purchasing from luxury brands, we imagine artisans working in beautiful workshops and earning a good living. We don't expect Dior to be using the same shady practices as fast fashion brands, but unfortunately, that's what's happening. Subcontractors paid foreign workers who live in Italy illegally as little as $2 an hour with extremely inhumane conditions, some of which include employees sleeping in the factories and turning off safety equipment on machines to have them run quicker. Actually, with this in mind, the work conditions and quality of these bags are probably the exact same as the counterfeit Dior bags, which is like, just buy the counterfeit one, it's the exact same pretty much. It's probably the same people making the counterfeit ones as the people making the real ones at this point. Keeping that in mind, my bag will be of even higher value than Dior's because the work conditions are safer and fair, which means that I could charge more for my dupe of their bag than they're charging for the saddle bag that they invented. Probably not, but that's just going off of their margins. And my work conditions, of course, being that I'm doing this at my own free will and in the comfort of my home with no timeline except for the one that I set for myself in my own head, which is pretty tight. And I don't know why I do that every time. I'm like, I need this done now. And I'm like, why? You set that. Girl, relax. Okay, anyways. But this brings up another point.
Oh my God, what is that?
$57 total cost of materials and labor, and the bags sell for over 3,000 doll hairs. That's like a 1 billion% profit margin, I think. I didn't want to do the math, but probably. But. In their financial report, they say their current operating margin is 26.5%. Bruh. So that bag cost them $2,205 total? Where in the fictional world did the other 2,148 doll hairs come from? Girl. Be so for real. A lot of it is advertising and finding ways to keep Dior's prestige, even with all the scandal going on. So basically, instead of having quality practices and treating workers fairly, they rather pay a shitload of money to distract and jazz hands and cover up and give them the old razzle dazzle to cover up the fact that they treat their workers like shit. But imagine actually making a beautiful product and treating the workers fairly, so I don't know, they could get a piece of the pie maybe? No, that's crazy. Just shove more advertising in their face. Just look how pretty it is. Shut up. Don't worry about it. Okay. That's Dior right now. But I won't shut up. I will talk about it, okay? I see what you're doing. Not in my house. I'm gonna be working for free in this house. No pay. Because I'm doing it for myself. Let's talk about how I'm gonna make this bag. Also, if you want to know about these glasses that I'm wearing for my Smarticle research section, these are Firmoo glasses. Link in the bio. Use my code KLM50 for 50% off. I love them. And these are prescriptions, so I can actually see but I don't need them to see up close. I use them for far away, but I just use them for dramatic effect for the video. But anyways, okay. Let's make this bag. So my plan to make this bag is I researched a ton of the shape of it. I just researched it all, okay? I looked at like the real and other people selling duplicates because then sometimes they take better pictures of all the little bits and pieces. And I came up with a pattern that I'm pretty happy with. I basically drew it all out in Illustrator and made sure that all the sizes ended up being correct for the sizes listed on Dior's website for the bag, for the final measurements. And then I printed that out and cut those pattern pieces out. I have all the pattern pieces, and I think I'll link this in the bio for you guys. So if you do want to make this bag, you can go ahead and use it. It's not going to be exact. I'm realizing as I'm going that some of it's not perfect. And also keep in mind when you use it, I did not add any, you know, the bits on the end where you add so that seam allowance. I didn't add any seam allowance, so you're gonna have to add your own seam allowance, but I think that gives you a little more flexibility depending on if you want to use leather, if you want to use fabric, whatever. You can go ahead and check that out if you want to make one of these too. Like I said, don't worry. The 3D shape of the bag is not trademarked. And I made this pattern myself by looking at pictures, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut out the lining pieces and we're gonna cut out the shell pieces, and then we're going to figure out how to assemble this thing, because the longer I look at it, the more I realize that there's such a specific order that everything needs to be done. If you don't do it in that specific order, you kind of get different seams and like look on the outside. So I'm trying to figure out, like, working in reverse and also not having the physical bag in front of me, how to put everything together in the correct order, especially because the lining is the part that's really screwing me up, but I want it to be pretty and have a nice lining. And then girly pops, oh yeah, I showed you the hardware a little bit. Instead of the D, I was hoping to actually find a ring that was like a D shape so that I could have it look like a little stirrup, but I couldn't find that, so a little circular stirrup will have to do. So that is the circle. And then we have these edge pieces for the sides of the bags. My bag is going to be white. As you can see, this is the fabric that I'm using for the outside of the bag, and then the inside of the bag, the lining, just black, classy, I know. And then I made some trim with some leftover fall leather that I had, and I just put a little piece of cord in it and I made cording with my flubber. There it is. That's going to be used for the trim, and some of the stitching details will be black. So it's going to be white bag, black hardware, black details. Gorgeous. And then you're probably thinking, are you doing fabric straps? Nar. I actually ended up going to Lonsdale Leather, which is a leather company here close to me, local to me. Like I said, I didn't want to do the whole bag in leather, but you know, I wanted to attempt to do some leather work because of those beautiful YouTube shorts we talked about earlier. Remember that? You remember. So I got a goat. I got some goat leather right here. And before you get mad at me for buying leather, ask yourself if you're vegan. And if you are vegan, please go ahead and be mad at me. And if you're not vegan, shut up, because you eat meat and this is just a byproduct of eating meat. And I think that it's better to use every part of the animal than to waste it. But anyways, this is goat. And I really like it, and it's 2 ounces, which is a way they measure leather, and I don't want to be asked about it because I don't really understand, but I know that it's quite thin. And then they talk about different firmness too, and she's a wobbly girl, but it's floppy, it's not very stiff, it's not very firm. That's kind of the plan. Let's get into it, shall we? Now, I want you to get the enjoyment out of this video that I get from those videos that I'm talking about where they're making these handbags, and a lot of them have the most insane plot lines ever.
The other day I went to a class reunion. I found many students carrying either LV or Chanel. When they asked about my recent situation, a female student grabbed the answer. She said she had seen my video. Not many people like my video. I could only echo the laugh. I thought to myself, even if only one person likes my video.
So here's my best attempt at one of those voiceovers.
When I went to the first day of school, I decided to carry this discreet bag that I made so that people wouldn't recognize that I was the Kaplan heiress and only be defined by my family's fortune. The popular girls at school punished me because nothing I wear is designer, so they think I'm poor. They said my videos are dumb and I would never become wealthy sharing my videos. Would you like this video to prove me wrong? Please like and share and follow, and maybe those girls will be wrong about how I can become wealthy with my videos.
And with that, a helpful tutorial is so far out of the question for this video, so we're just gonna have to go down the Makara tour route and see if any of that sticks for you guys. Now I'm carefully trimming the excess seam allowance of this bottom of the bag, but I don't think she's excessive. I think she's perfect. Then I'm going to use this leather cement, which is just glue. I don't know why they call it cement because it's not actually cement, whatever. And using it to not use it on leather because I'm using it to attach this interfacing, thicky interfacing to the lining. And then now I'm sewing a little hole for my magnet to go into so that the magnet doesn't move around. Here I'm attaching the lining to the shell for this back pocket, and the amount of mental gymnastics it took for me to figure out how to cut out the piece of lining to be the correct direction for this is a little bit upsetting, but it was quite late in the day at this point, so please don't judge. Then I flipped it around and I'm using my machine to top stitch it down because you've really got to assert your dominance on this fabric. And you can see I used a black thread because we're doing white with black accents. Very beautiful, I know. Here I am showing you where I'm going to be. Okay, that's enough of the accent, but I'm showing you where I'm going to attach the pocket to the back, and I realized I put on the piping too soon. I had to undo it all so that I could put the pocket back on, but it's okay because it kind of helped hold everything in place. Then I pretty quickly whipped through these little leather details and these little side pieces, but this was the most tedious part of it all, was just trying to sew this bottom part of the bag to the rest of the bag and to make sure that you couldn't see any seams and to make sure that the piping was all nice and straight. And I put on the piping first, which helped a lot, but then I had to like sew the bottom of the bag basically, and I had to go back and undo stitches over and over and over to make sure that everything lined up correctly because I don't know, just sometimes it just didn't want to line up, and this was very tedious. I finally got it to look pretty decent, but this was a lot. Like, I sat and watched like a couple movies to finish this part, I'm not gonna lie. Now I'm putting the rest of this clip in super speed so I can ease some of that pain. Then it was time for some finishing touches, so just finishing up stitching a couple places, and then I used this special fabric marker, guys, that washes off with water. So I wet this Q-tip with some water and went ahead and washed away all of those little blue marks on the bag, and this was very satisfying. This is why we're here, folks. This is where those videos from before, they led me down this path, and this is why. This was all worth it. I loved this part. I mean, other parts were great too, like the leather working and sewing, and yeah, but this was the cherry on top for me. This was very satisfying. Another satisfying part, using the lighter, the pyro in me loved this part. I mean, what? And of course, doing something for the first time, I want to be perfect at it, so I had to go to the Dior store and see how my bag held up to theirs, and honestly, theirs is really great and mine has a lot of issues, but I'm happy with it. She's cute, okay? She's beautiful. She's like the Walmart Birkin. She's a workin'. She's for the working class. Dare I even say a merkin because she's functional. And you know what? Maybe she just needs a little reveal music to reveal herself. So let's hit it.